Well, hey there, Scholarly Gamers, and welcome to the last, for now, episode of Streaming Fundamentals. We've covered all sorts of different aspects of streaming throughout the series. Each episode on one hand can stand on its own 2 feet, but, in all reality, the series is all about, taking each little aspect of every episode and trying to use them as best as you can. Whilst not every episode is necessarily for everyone, some folk don't need any help with certain aspects. There's been some that are quite important. Physical health, obviously, is something we all need to be, mindful of. And I like to think that one of the first episodes, how streaming is really all about you, is one that's really important. You really need to try to take to heart why you're streaming in the first place. You need to have realistic expectations and also have good motivating factors, good reasons that you want to stream, and that's why it's not so much that we're coming full circle, but I wanted to save this episode for last, and that's to do with mental health. Now, I want to be clear here. When it comes to mental health, I don't want to discuss it in general terms, because, I have years of professional experience in that sector. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapy practitioner, a mindfulness guru, right? So in a professional capacity, I've been on the front lines dealing with people that suffer from depression, from anxiety, from drug addiction, from alcoholism, from anger issues. One of my favorite courses to deliver actually is anger management, because that hits very close to home for me. When I was young, I had horrible anger issues, and when I went to therapy myself as a young man, it did absolute wonders for me. So I want to try to stay away from general mental health issues, because, let's be honest, mental health affects everyone. Basically, if we look at the statistics, it's estimated that in the past week, 1 out of every 6 people in the world will have experienced some type of mental health issue. Major depression is one that affects people all over the world. I've been very fortunate. I firsthand have not experienced depression, but those around me certainly have. In fact, this episode was put on hold because of such an issue, that I won't go into. And I think it's important to understand that depression, is a state, right? It's a horrible thing to have, and people without depression don't understand it, because everybody gets depressed, right? Being depressed is not depression. Depression is just, it's horrible. We could go into the science behind it. We could go into, what some of the precipitating factors are. They're still trying to figure it out, right? The professionals still can't quite put their fingers on it. But it's important to understand that if you hear someone speaking about depression, not to just brush it to the side, not to just go, oh, get a grip, or, oh, try to think positive, because it's not that easy. When someone's depressed, right, usually we have a reason. Like, oh, I didn't get that promotion at work. Oh, I went to buy that game and they were out of stock, right? There's usually some type of logical reason that makes us sad and depressed, right? These are natural emotions and they're completely normal. For people that do not have depression, it's hard to understand the concept that for somebody with depression, you can wake up feeling that way. There's no reason for it. There is no putting your finger on, oh, I'm feeling this way because that. And that's what's so difficult for people, who get depressed, that don't have depression. It's so difficult for them to understand people with depression, because it isn't that simple. Trust me, I go through this day in, day out, with loved ones of mine who would, they would love to know why they feel the way they do, but they just can't put their finger on it. This is why, if you do suffer from depression, don't suffer alone. Yes, I know it's not that easy to reach out, and people around you should be trying to reach in, right? But there's so many services out there for you. I know it's easy to get cynical about, especially here in the UK, our National Health Service, or likewise if you're in the States and maybe you don't have health insurance, you don't have the money you think to go and, see your GP and get referred. There's plenty of great charities out there. Here in the UK, we have the Samaritans, which is a free number to phone, completely anonymous, and it's just someone on the other end of the line who's professionally trained, who can try to help you, who can try to, point you in the right direction. Yes, it's not going to solve all of your problems, but don't keep your problems to yourself. So that's dealing with depression as a whole. Again, I don't want to really get into it. I just think it's important that people understand that being depressed, a person being depressed is not the same as a person with depression. And it's the same with anxiety. We all get anxious, right? For all sorts of numerous reasons. And usually, if we do get anxious, we can go through what we call self-talk, where we talk to ourselves saying, it's okay, don't worry about that because of this, right? We can attack these things in a logical way. But for someone who suffers from anxiety, again, it's not that easy because you just have these horrible, unexplainable feelings, the state of anxiousness, this heightened anxiety, whether it's around people, whether it's around situations. Again, I've been fortunate. I haven't suffered from these things, but people who are close to me and that I love have. We've been in these situations where, someone just can't even face leaving the house because they're unsure of what's going to happen. They don't know who they're going to encounter when they're at, the supermarket getting groceries. Or, oh God, when the phone rings, who's on the other end? For people who don't suffer from anxiety, that might sound really, really silly. But if you do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I just want you to kind of take away that you're not alone, right? There is help out there all over the world, all the different countries. Canada's got great programs. The US, yes, depending on the state that you're in, there's more services than others, but there's national initiatives as well. We'll try to get some links in the description, of different, kind of assets for you to, if you need to talk to someone. But let's talk about streaming specifically. And, it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, for people that do suffer from depression and anxiety, streaming can be quite cathartic, right? It can be quite good to get you to engage with other people. You might feel safe because there you are, you're behind a camera. You don't have any actual face-to-face interaction with people, but you are engaging and, you're getting, folk talking to you. And that's great. If you think about it, if you were going to be going down a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy pathway, the chances are at some point you would be exposed to either group therapy or one-on-one counseling sessions. So on one hand, streaming can kind of informally serve as that for you. People can encourage you. You can maybe get a little bit of self-validation, increase your self-confidence. Streaming in so many ways can be a really good bit of medicine for people that suffer with anxiety and depression. But at the same time, streaming can also open up a horrible can of worms. When you have your trolls, when you have people who are being negative, for many people out there, it happens to all streamers, and those of us that don't suffer from depression and anxiety, it's really easy for most of us to brush that off. Troll, and just ban. Or even, not acknowledge them. Don't feed them, right? And just brush it to one side. But for many people out there, it isn't that easy. And even when the stream finishes, and there they are trying to unwind for the evening, that'll just be in their head. What we, in the industry, we call ants, right? Automatic negative thoughts. These thoughts just pop in your head. It's so difficult to challenge them, to try to address them, to try to, say that they're not true. They just plague you. And this is where streaming can be quite difficult. And that's why it's so good to see people opening up about mental health, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on Mixer, whether it's on YouTube. Online lately has been great, where we're finding out that, people, even some of the large content creators, whether you like them or not, but people like Lyric, on YouTube, PewDiePie, all sorts of other big names. Man versus Game, prime example, whose depression, got to the point where, there he was self-medicating. He was taking drugs just to, try to get himself through streams. These are the dangers. If you have that predisposition, or you suffer from these issues, you have to be careful with streaming, because on one hand it can be really good for you, but on the other hand it can be really, really damaging. So how do you navigate that? How do you decide what's right and what isn't? When you should stream, when you shouldn't? Well, friends and family. If you don't have friends and family, unfortunately, then, it is a case of, if you don't feel up to it, then don't. Whether you need to broadcast that on Twitter, saying, look, I'm taking the mental health day, I'm not quite up to it. Again, it's important to take care of yourself. Just as we said, it's important to take care of your physical health with the right diet. You need to do the same with your mental health. If you're constantly looking at social media and looking at the negatives, and taking criticism really badly, and bad comments, or reading into things that aren't there, then it might be time to just take a little break, step away, put the internet down, right, and just try to feel better about yourself. Yes, reach out if you can, and likewise, if you know a streamer that seems to be having issues and they're not talking about it, well, you can always try to reach in. Just be careful. You don't want to prod and pry too much, because a lot of times people can just, kind of go into their shell if they feel you're taking them out of their own comfort zone. But streaming isn't easy, right? Remember when we talked about why are you streaming in the first place? You need to revisit this, and you need to have realistic expectations. If your depression and anxiety is getting flared up because you don't have very many viewers, or you don't think that you're going to get partnered, well, you need to have a look again, right? Have realistic expectations. We discussed this, where, statistically, there's a better chance of you being a professional athlete than there is of being a career streamer. Right? As someone who makes it big. These are folk that have been at the right place at the right time, have a fair bit of luck, but then also put in a lot of time and effort. If you're just turning on your stream a few times a week, and that's it, you can't expect to get exponential growth. When you look at people, some of the, and again, I know it's debatable what we consider successful, but, some of these folk that are coming out and explaining their early stories, of how they were streaming 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, but then also behind the scenes, when they weren't streaming, they were still hustling away, trying to reach out, trying to network, and posting random crap on Twitter is not networking. We're talking about actually sending professionally crafted emails, trying to reach out to people, dealing with PR firms. There's a lot more to streaming as a career, if you want to actually sustain yourself financially off it, than just turning the camera on and playing video games. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Now, on the other hand, streaming as a hobby, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't try to put these unrealistic demands on yourself that, oh, I have to have this many viewers, I have to do this, I have to do that. I think if you do that to yourself, you're kind of missing the point, right? Why are you streaming in the first place? Is it not to have fun? Is it not to try to meet people, to build your own community? These are the types of reasons that you should be looking at. If you're only concerned about financial gain, then, it's going to take a lot of work, I'm afraid. And, this is how it's so easy to get depressed, when you set unrealistic expectations for yourself and you don't meet them, then you're going to be walking away each night, oh, what a horrible stream that was. Oh, that was crap. I only had this many viewers. Man, I didn't get a single new sub. You know, you can't beat yourself up about these things. You have to look at the positives and take them where you can. I've seen so many streamers who are just, fantastic to watch, but maybe they don't have a high audience, they don't have big numbers. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, looking back at reasons, why, you're not getting the success that you want. You can easily try to externalize it and blame it on all these other factors, but you can also internalize it too much. I see so many people that beat themselves up. Oh, I'm crap. No one likes me. I'm not entertaining to watch. Well, okay. Don't be so critical of yourself. But if those things are true, if you're watching back your VODs and realise that, well, okay, yeah, I'm not that entertaining, then do something about it, right? You hold the keys to your success. But it's easy to get depressed. Again, we're not talking about depression, but depressed from streaming. Sometimes you just need to walk away. I was like that myself for a long time. When I first started streaming, it was a hobby. I just wanted to do it for fun, right? I thought to myself that, you know what, I'm going to be playing video games anyway, so why don't I just stream it whilst I'm doing that? But then, for me, and this is just a personal choice, it kind of conflicted with what I wanted to do. Because when I play video games, usually I'm playing with my friends, and we have a good laugh, and, we talk about stuff. But then when I was streaming, I had to kind of, not pay attention to my friends and instead pay attention to my audience. And then eventually it got to the point for me where my audience, was not that they were horribly demanding, but, constantly, oh, hey, can you play with me? Can we do this? Can you do that? Right? And it soon became apparent to me that my initial reasons for wanting to stream, just to have a bit of fun, it stopped being fun for me. I love now just being able to play games off stream, just with my friends, do what I want, not have to worry about the schedule and meeting people, the demands of the audience. It was a journey of self-discovery for me. And I can put my hand up to that and say, okay, yeah, this is what I thought streaming was going to be, and the direction it went for me was slightly different. I've soon found out that, actually, while the idea and the concept of having an audience and having that engagement with the community is great, the reality of it for me was just, it was too draining. Yourself, if you get off stream, it doesn't end there. If you've got a Discord, you'll be getting messages, same with your social media. And I've got too much going on in my life, between, my personal life, my professional life, and now currently my academic life, that for my own mental health, I said, you know what? Nah, no more streaming for me. And, as someone who streamed for years and enjoyed it, it is a bit bittersweet. But again, for my own sanity, it just made sense. So this is the other thing that you have to, maybe come to realize that, yes, the concept and dream of streaming for a living is great. But then you might reach a point where you find out that, you know what, whilst you really want to stream, maybe it just isn't for you. Maybe, when you get to the point that video games are now a chore, and you're actually playing a video game just so you get the views for it, rather than a game you want to play, you're playing a game so you can, rank on the most views and whatnot, then, to each their own, I suppose. But yeah, you really need to take care of yourself. If you need to take nights off, do it. If you've been streaming for long periods of time, yes, I know there's that fear of, oh, if I take one day off or if I take a week off, I'm going to lose so much of my audience. Well, guess what? If it's a decent audience, if your community actually cares about you, they'll understand. And if anything, they'll appreciate your transparency, your honesty, and saying that, look, I need to take some time off. I've got some stuff going on. And if anything, it might make your community want to engage with you even more, saying, oh wow, I know exactly how you feel. And then now all of a sudden you've got a kindred spirit, you've got someone to talk to. You're not dealing with it alone. Mental health affects everyone, whether it's directly or indirectly. We all know someone who has somehow been affected by mental health, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's some kind of personality disorder, whether we're talking about suicide. Just about everyone has some kind of experience with these issues. So at the end of the day, don't be scared to say something. Don't be scared to reach out. And also don't be scared if someone tries to reach in, right? Just take the time that you need to take care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm taking a mental health day. I just need a break. If your audience, actually cares about you and you're not just some kind of performing monkey for their entertainment, they'll understand. They will care. So just be really, really careful. And I can't reiterate enough that if you find yourself that it's not just a case of being depressed, it's not just a case of being anxious, but you think for even a moment that it's something more than that, that maybe, you do have depression, you need to do something about it. And I know that's easier said than done. I know it's difficult. But at least let someone know. If you have a close confidant, one of your moderators maybe, if you're a member of a stream team, then okay, look, your leadership or management, whether you've got community leaders or admins, reach out to someone that you can trust, someone you feel can understand. And sometimes just having a chat with someone can really, really help you. It's not going to cure things, it's not going to fix everything in one sitting, but at least maybe it'll give you the strength, the courage, and a little bit of positive reinforcement to take action and hopefully, try your best to to deal with it, because these things don't go away. Depression, my partner has had depression all of her life. We're talking decades. There is no getting away from it. It's just getting it to a point where it's manageable, where you can learn to live with it. And with streaming, it makes it all the more difficult, because you do have these external forces you cannot control. Yes, you can ban them and whatnot eventually, but you don't know what you're going to be exposed to. So if you're in that kind of mood that day where you don't think you could handle any type of negative comments or critique, then take that day off. I don't know what else to say. I want to, just mental health is so important. It's so, it affects us all. I know I've said it before, but it just really, really does. And, all you can do is your best. Hold yourself to your own measuring stick. Don't try to compare yourself to others. And, you'll get there. Just hopefully you can find some type of support, whether it's, from one of these hotlines, a free service, whether it's through the health service in your country, your GP, whether it's through counselling, or whether it's just through your friends and family. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid to speak up about it. And hopefully everything will work out for you. Well, I think that's going to call it for Streaming Fundamentals. Again, we'll revisit this series maybe later down the line. Hopefully after some feedback we can say, oh, hey, we need to actually look at this maybe. Oh, we never talked about this. And maybe get a little bit more involvement. The next video series is going to be a fundamentals series as well, just not dealing with streaming, and more details on that later down the line. And yeah, in the meantime, look, if you're not having fun while you're streaming, then you're doing it wrong. That's all I can say. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll not catch you next time, but we'll catch you later. Take it easy.